So let me tell you a story. This one's about a witch that lived at the edge of a village. Her cozy hut was surrounded by thick, dense forest, the kind that people don't usually venture into because of all the scary stories that they were told as kids. Her name was Calon Arang. Let's call her Calon for the story. She lived there with her beautiful daughter Ratna Mangali. Let's call her Ratna. They lived together in this small hut, one with nature, away from all the villagers. You see, given that Calon lived on the outskirts of the village, you would think that people never really cared for her. I mean, there was no one walking by her hut. No one that came in to check in on her or her beautiful daughter. For all intents and purposes, they were left alone. They were all a bit wary of her. Whether it be because Calon was a widower, there was after all a slight stigma against widowers during these olden times. Or maybe it was the makeup that she wore, so vibrant and exaggerated that it stood out even from a distance. Or maybe it was the black magic that she practiced. Magic that allowed her to communicate with the spirits of the dead, giving her a sinister reputation throughout the region. She was shunned, of course, when the villagers came to know of it. Because who would want to have a witch live close to them? So, Calon and Ratna lived by themselves away from the people of the village that feared Calon and had therefore shunned them. You see, unlike Calon, who practiced the dark magic, Ratna was the opposite. She was said to be kind, soft-hearted, innocent. She was loved by the villagers, and every time Ratna came into the village for one reason or another, the villagers would tell her, beg her even, "Leave your mother. You'll be safer in the village with us. We will take care of you." Or at least that's what they told her. They believed that Ratna was a victim of her mother's evil ways. But no matter how much they pleaded with Ratna, she was steadfast. She told them, "It's okay. I'm okay. My mother loves me." Anyone hearing that would just think Ratna was lying just to protect her mother. But that wasn't the case at all. For all her faults, for all the sinister nature that the villagers were afraid of Calon for, she loved her daughter to death. Enough that she was willing to kill anyone to keep her daughter safe and make sure that Ratna lived a life that is better than hers. So for all the reasons that the villagers pled Ratna to leave, she wasn't going to do that. She was never going to leave her mother. Ratna loved her just as much as Calon loved her daughter. As Ratna grew older and older, she became even more beautiful. The belle of the land, if you will. So even though she was of marriable age, there were no suitors lining up to ask for her hand. A fact that kinda irritated Calon. Because as much as there was a stigma against widowers, there was also a stigma against unwed women of age. So as the months turned into years and Ratna still remained unwed, Calon's anger grew and grew and grew until it reached a boiling point. She blamed the people of the village for her daughter remaining unwed. If only they weren't such cowards or bigots. If only they could just see all the good qualities that her daughter had. But no matter what she tried, the villagers just couldn't forget the fact that Ratna was Calon's daughter. And so marrying Ratna would only bring danger to their own house. So finally, when the desperation hit, Calon waited. If the villagers were going to make her daughter remain unwed, she was going to cast a curse on the village. One in the form of a sacrifice that would serve as both a reminder to the villagers of her wrath, and also as an offering to the goddess to grant her wish of getting her daughter married off. 2 birds, 1 stone. So Calon waits. She waits for the perfect moment. A dark night with no moon. She hides in the shadows between the houses, making sure that no one saw her, which wasn't that hard given how dark it was. Even the night lamps couldn't illuminate the streets as much. It didn't take her long for her to find her target, which happened to be a small girl that was barely 7 years old, wandering about in their small garden in front of her house. She could hear the girl's mother calling out for her. "I'll be right there," the girl answered, but her mistake? She didn't head back home quickly. Instead, the girl got distracted by a small butterfly and ventured closer to where Calon was hiding. Perfect distance for Calon to snare her, and so Calon quickly grabs the little girl, hypnotizes her with her magic, and leaves the place as quickly as she came. By the time the villagers search for the little girl in the early hours of the morning, searching far and wide within the land, with gas lamps in one hand and a long wooden stick in another and hope in their hearts, because how far could a little girl venture out on her own? But they couldn't find her anywhere in the village. So with the fear gripping their chests, they go to search the one place that they didn't even dare to think of. They came to a stop in front of a cemetery. All their heartbeats race, their hands begin to sweat as they enter the cemetery, and when they walk in, it doesn't take them long to find her. The entire group of people, they could not speak a word, not one sound. Complete silence enveloped them like a thick morning fog, until it was shattered by an ear-piercing scream of the little girl's mother. Because there, in the middle of the cemetery, was the decapitated head of the little girl, placed on a platter as an offering to the goddess Durga. Her little body was lying to the side as if discarded after it had served its purpose. And amidst the screams and wails of the little girl's mother, the villagers knew that there was only one person that could do such a heinous act, and that was Calon Arang. But the sacrifice worked though, because right after, when the monsoons hit, surprisingly early for that year, the entire region was flooded, taking so many people's lives. And as if that wasn't enough, once the floods had receded, a plague swarmed the lands, killing so many of the remaining people that barely survived the floods. One part of the curse now is true. Now, it was only a matter of time before Ratna would be able to get married. Calon wasn't worried though. Her wish would be granted in time. She had faith, so she waited. In the meantime, the king of the land, King Arilanga, we're gonna call him King Ari, he and his cabinet hear of the things that happen in the village, and he sends out his army to the village to essentially take Calon out. But Calon is powerful, so much that even when the army came up to the village, she killed them all on her own. And given the size of the army that she had just killed and the number of people that had lost their lives trying to face her, King Ari realized that he needed to be a bit more discreet in trying to take her down. So, he talks to his chief advisor, Chief Bharata, and the two of them come up with a plan. You see, Bharata had a few disciples, basically training under him. One of the smarter ones there was Bahula. So according to the plan, Chief Bharata sends Bahula to propose to Ratna, Calon's daughter. And following the plan, Bahula ventures into the village. He faces Calon bravely, or as brave as one could be in front of a person that had just killed an entire army. He tells her who he is, where he comes from, and asks Calon for her daughter's hand in marriage. Calon is ecstatic. Her daughter is finally going to be wed, and without further thought, she agrees to the proposal. The marriage between Bahula and Ratna, it was so grand. It was celebrated through the land for 7 days and 7 nights, almost a festivity in itself. One that was so grand that it pleased Calon so much. And given that Ratna and Bahula are getting closer and beginning to love each other, that was just an added bonus. Everything was going perfectly well. All of her wishes were coming true. So the entire 7 days of celebration, Calon was merry. eating and partying and sleeping the night off, sometimes so deeply that she was not responsive to the world for the entire night. During the celebrations, Ratna and Bahula, they get closer to each other. They talk among themselves, revealing bits and pieces about their lives before they met each other, all the while enjoying the party that were thrown in their honor. And in one such conversation, Ratna, trusting her husband, reveals the secret to Calon's powers. She tells her husband about the secret scrolls that her mother uses to perform rituals and ceremonies every night. She tells her husband all of that and doesn't really think much of it. But her husband, Bahula, this was exactly what he was waiting for. This was what he was sent here for. So the minute Ratna tells him of the spellbook, he gets this twinkle in his eye. And that night, when everyone has fallen asleep, Bahula creeps into Calon's house. With bated breath, he sneaks in. Calon was already asleep, and with all the partying, she was tired. She was deep asleep, soft snores echoing the walls of her quiet bedroom. Bahula, he had already asked Ratna where the magic scrolls were, and trusting him, Ratna revealed that knowledge. So, using that information, Bahula creeps into Calon's bedroom, sneaks into her drawer, and steals the magic scrolls. He then returns the magic scrolls to Chief Bharata and tells his mentor of all the things that he had learned about Calon from his wife Ratna. He tells Bharata about the magic, the rituals, the ceremonies, how Calon gains her powers, and how she uses them, everything. After Chief Bharata makes note of everything Bahula had told him, he takes the magic scrolls from Bahula and informs his disciple to go back to his wife before Calon notices that he is missing. But now, informed with all this knowledge, Chief Bharata and King Ari come up with a new plan. And for that, they utilize Bahula once again. This time though, Bahula invites them back into the village, both the chief and the king. The three of them, they meet Calon at the cemetery where Chief Bharata, he asks Calon to stop practicing her dark magic. Initially, he tries to plead to her humanity, telling her of all the lives that were lost because of her, all the debt that she brought upon the land and the people of the village. He tells her of the people that were still suffering under her. But Calon refuses. She didn't even bother listening to Chief Bharata, and the more she refused, the more Chief Bharata pushes her to consider her wrongs. And it gets to the point that the chief and king send out their army once again. Calon fights. She uses all the knowledge that she gained from years of practicing the magic. But when more soldiers come down on her, she searches for her magic scrolls only to find it missing. And without the help of the magic scrolls and completely exhausted from the fight, and with more soldiers descending upon her, she finally transforms into her demon form, Rangda. But without the magic scroll to help her, Calon loses the battle. And eventually, her life. Ratna is horrified and devastated when she realizes that her mother is dead. She loved her mother with everything within her, but she also realized how bad her mother could get. And as sad as it was, as devastated as she was, she understood that just because a person can be good to you doesn't mean that they're going to be good to everyone else. This was the story of the rise and fall of Calon Arang, the Balinese witch that lived almost a millennia ago. She is said to have lived in the village of Gira during the time of King Arlanga. Stories of this powerful witch, this figure that had existed in the Balinese and Javanese folklore as this force of darkness and chaos. Calon Arang is the original name of the witch, and the title that she takes on when she transforms into the demon queen, Rangda. Rangda embodies rage and destruction, a true reincarnation of evil, if you will. She is said to be the queen of the Leyaks, the Balinese version of the demons, essentially controlling them, making them fall into a trance to do her bidding, like when she was fighting the army. While Calon Arang is depicted as this woman with exaggerated makeup, her demonic form is said to be terrifying, with long tusks, bulging eyes, and a long red tongue that extends to her waist. The story of Calon Arang, it's more of a symbolism to show the eternal struggle between good and evil, showing the importance of maintaining harmony between the two. It is so entrenched in the Balinese culture that to this day, it is immortalized in the form of a dance. The performance essentially has two main figures. On one side, we have Rangda, depicting darkness, chaos, destruction. And on the other side, we have Barong, who is essentially the opposite. He is considered the guardian spirit, bringing protection and balance. Their fight throughout the performance is a symbolism that shows the eternal struggle between good and evil, which happens to be the core concept of spiritualism in Bali. It is a sacred ritual that is performed at night in the temples during important ceremonies. Now, stepping back from the myth for a second here, where exactly did this story come from? The roots of Kalanarang, they could actually be traced back to almost 10th century, to a powerful ruler, Queen Mahendradatta. She is credited to have brought many significant changes to Bali. She was born to the Javanese Mataram dynasty and married to a Balinese king, Udayana, so more of a political marriage. Unlike all the other previous Balinese queens, though, it is said that one of the main changes of having Mahendradatta as queen was the shift in power dynamics of the islands. She had considerable influence over the land, sometimes even overshadowing her husband. She was said to be a devout worshipper of goddess Durga, just like Kalanarang. But the changes that she made to the kingdom, that didn't stop there. Queen Mahendradatta introduced the worship of goddess Durga to the land. She even changed the official language of Bali from Old Balinese to Old Javanese. This was a change that made many people of Bali kind of weary of her growing power and influence, especially considering the fact that she was from Java. She was technically considered a foreign influence. And this discomfort over her growing power, it slowly morphed into fear and suspicion, and slowly the worship of goddess Durga had come to be associated with black magic and witchcraft. Tales later say that Queen Mahendradatta had been banished for practicing the dark arts, though. But it is interesting to note the similarities between the two women, Queen Mahendradatta and Kalanarang. Both powerful women in their own right, both of them associated with the worship of goddess Durga and their connection to black magic. Essentially, both women were a threat to the established order. But I feel there's another way that we can look at the story. I feel this is a story of revenge and maybe an overreaction to the societal constraints that were placed on Kalanarang. The story starts off with Kalanarang being a widow, a single mother with an unwed daughter that is coming of age. Being considered a widow in the olden days, especially a Hindu widow, came with a lot of baggage, putting it lightly. Widows were ostracized from society, and add to that, Kalanarang was a single mother that was trying to give her daughter a good life, a life that she herself did not have. So she turns to the one thing that she knows how to do, which is to worship a goddess who happens to be goddess Durga. You see, goddess Durga is essentially a warrior goddess. The way she was even created was even for that purpose, for protection. I'll make another episode about goddess Durga in the future, so stay tuned for that. But getting back, Given how it's said that the goddess is powerful and yet so compassionate and fiercely protective, it is easy to see why Calon Arang is a devotee of the goddess. And by extension, it is easy to see why a Javanese princess, Mahendra Datta, would want to pray to goddess Durga when she is essentially moving to a different kingdom of Bali to become their new queen. And when people did not yet want to marry her daughter, Ratna, given how unwed women were looked down upon, we can understand the desperation that Calon clung to. She suffered her life. She was desperate to give her daughter a better one. And seeing it all crumble right in front of her, that was not what she wanted. Now, am I condoning the actions that Calon did? No, absolutely not. But do I understand the reasons for her actions? Yes, absolutely. The way that I see the story is essentially a woman that is trying to survive within a society that is willing to let her perish. She feels abandoned by the society that she grew up in, so she feels no pain in letting them burn to keep herself warm. Anyway, that's all I have for you today. Have a good night and sweet dreams.